Hi, today we're going to be dividing decimals. We need to put the dividing decimals note sheet on page 30 in your interactive notebook and the practice sheet that looks like this on page 29. If you could set that up, please, I'd appreciate it. And then when you do have it in the book, I want you to add your topic, which is dividing decimals, and your essential question: what do you do if there is a decimal in the dividend or the divider? The divider, oh no, I meant the divisor. That's D-I-V-I-S-O-R, divisor. That was funny. Please pause the video if you need to take a moment to write that down. And then you're going to come back with us and we're going to talk about 6 number systems 3, the 6th grade standard number systems, standard number 3. By the end of this lesson, you should be able to fluently divide decimals using the standard algorithm. And before we start, I want you to remember that when we divide, we have the dividing bar, we have the divisor, and we have the dividend. It's important when we set up our problems. Now, we're going to move down to this problem that is on your paper. And when we get word problems, I want us to be able to mark the text in a way that will help us solve. So from this point on, whenever we have word problems, I want us to circle the numbers and underline the words that go with the numbers. So for example, in this question, Johnny saved $38.50 from mowing lawns. He wants to purchase baseball cards for 75 cents each. How many cards can he purchase? So I'm going to circle my numbers, and I'm going to ask myself, that $38.50, what does that represent? And it represents the money that Johnny saved. Saved $38.50. He wants to purchase baseball cards for 75 cents, that's a number, each. Each tells us that we're going to be dividing. We're going to be dividing the amount of money that Johnny saved by the $75. That is a detective word that we can use to determine what is the type of problem that we're going to be doing. And then what I like to do is I like to box my question, because sometimes there's a lot of words and I can get kind of confused as to what they're really asking me to do, and I want to focus in on what is the real problem here. And the real problem is how many $75 cards can I get out of $38.50? So now that I've marked the text, I'm going to go to the first step in my problem. And the first step is to set up the problem. Just write it out. So when we looked up above, we realized that we're dividing $38.50 by 75 cents. So $38.50 is our dividend, and 75 cents is our divisor. So I'm going to put 75 cents into $38.50. And I'm going to write it down here where it says work. So now that I've written that in, I'm going to go to the next step. And the next step, it says, is move the decimal on the outside in the divisor until it makes the until it makes the divisor a whole. Sorry. Once again, that is, move the decimal on the outside until it makes the divisor a whole number. Then do the same to the number on the inside. So divisor and same. So we're going to practice that. And to do this, I'm going to take a different pen because sometimes that helps to show it a little clearer. So I'm going to start in the divisor, and I'm going to take my decimal that's here, and I'm going to move it as many times as I need to the left in order to get it to become a whole number. So 1, 2. I moved 2 times. Now whatever I'm going to do in my divisor, I want to move also the same in my dividend. So I'm going to take my decimal that's right here and I'm going to move it also 2 times to the left. 1, 2. and now it's going to go there. So I moved it here 2 times. All right, now the next thing we're going to do, so now we have that same problem, and all we have to do is we just have to solve by dividing as if it were 2 whole numbers. So to do that, I'm going to rewrite my problem over here, just so now I have it with 2 whole numbers. So because I moved my decimals, I now am going to have 75 into 3,850. So now we're going to divide this problem out. 75 cannot go into 3. 75 cannot go into 38. But 75 can go into 385. So I need to make an educated guess. Well, I know that 75 times 2 is 150. I can do 75 times 3, which would be 5 and 1, 21, 22. I could do 75 times 4, which I know would be 300, because times 2 is 150. Well, if I look at 300, and I know I have 75, I know that if I have 75 times 5, I'm going to have 375. I'm just going to make a guess there. So I'm going to say that 75 times 5 would be 375, and then I'm going to subtract. And that's going to give me 10. I'm going to take my 0 that I have here and drop it down, and now I'm going to do 75 into 100. 75 into 100 is 1. Bring my number down. 1 times 75 is 75. Subtract. And so now I have this remainder. Now, I could do a couple things. I could write remainder 25, or I could do 25 over 75, and actually which would be 1/3, and write it as a fraction. Or I can start annexing zeros. So to do this, I want us to come up here where we wrote our note earlier, and I want us to do another note. And that note is that annex means add zeros. So now we're going to go down here, and with my red pen, because I can't go any further, I'm going to add zeros. And to do this, I'm going to add a decimal in my quotient, a decimal in my dividend. So see how I added decimals both here and here? I'm going to add decimal points when I can no longer divide. And then I'm going to add a 0 in my dividend. So I did a decimal in my quotient, a decimal in my dividend, I added a 0, and I'm going to drop that 0 down. So now I have 75 into 250. Well, I know that 300 is 4, 75 times 3 is 225, so that's going to be close. So I'm going to write a 3, which is 225, subtract. I'm going to get 25. Oh, look what's going to happen. I'm going to add another 0, drop it down, and I'm going to get this repeated number. Now, when you have a repeated decimal, you show that it's going to repeat on and on and on forever by putting the repeated decimal sign, which is this line over the decimal. And that's going to tell me that number is going to go on and on and on and on. So going back to my question. My question was, out of $3.50, how many times can we buy a 75-cent card, baseball card? Well, I can't buy a 3/10 of a card, but I can buy 51 full cards. So I'm going to say that Johnny can buy, make sure you always write it out in a sentence. If it's words to begin with, you got to end with words. Johnny can buy 51 baseball cards. Now, as we go over here to your practice problems, when you're working through these practice problems today, I want you to remember a couple things. First of all, remember that when we start off, we're going to write the problem, but we can't have decimals in the divisor, so we're going to have to move them over. And however many times you move over here, you move it over the same amount of times over here. Now, where this can be tricky is if you look at the next problem. The next problem has 1.5 as your divisor, and 138 and 27 hundredths. Notice that I'm only moving the decimal one time here, but I would still only move it one time here. So now I have 15 going into 1,382 and 7/10. If this is where my decimal is in my dividend, my decimal in my quotient or answer is going to be in the exact same spot. I'm just going to put it directly above. So that should help you to solve these problems. So I want you to do the 2 practice examples on your own and make sure that you go back and review the notes if you need any additional help. Thank you so much and have a fantastic day.